At some point in your training career, you will most likely have to deal with how to train around pain during your barbell lifts. My name is Michael Mash, and welcome to episode 6 of Whiteboard Wednesday. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to this channel, and if you're on YouTube, hit the alert notification. Today, I want to give you 5 tips for training with pain because it's inevitable. Pain is a fact of life, it's unavoidable, so we might as well learn how to best manage it with our training. Now, if you've been following me, you know that I'm not a big proponent of quick fixes, and I try to get people out of this mentality of more warm-ups, more mobility work, more foam rolling, more stretching being the answer, because it's not. It can go down this path that you don't want to go down where you end up needing an entire hour just to warm up. Try these 5 tips instead. They may seem simple, but I want you to think about them logically as a framework, as a hierarchy of I want to try this first, then this. Number 1, have you tried reducing the load? Sometimes pain is only occurring during a lift at a specific intensity or a specific RPE. For example, let's say we're dealing with shoulder pain during the bench press, but it only happens at 85% of 1 rep max. If that's the case, what you can do is you want to train right below that threshold where the pain is and get as much volume as you can there to work on slowly building up your tolerance to intensity. For example, when I was rehabbing my shoulder, I was having shoulder pain with the bench press. So what I did is I did a dumbbell bench press instead. At first, my shoulder hurt at 40-pound dumbbells, but it didn't hurt at 35. So I just trained at 35. Then I could train at 40 because it didn't hurt until 45. So I just kept pushing the envelope up until you're at the point where, hey, now I can tolerate 80s, but 85s hurt. So let me get my volume in at 80. So it's just about pushing, working directly underneath where the symptoms are to see if you can raise that threshold. If you train at too high of intensity, you're going to consistently exceed that threshold and the pain's going to linger around. If you train too low of an intensity, you're never going to give your body enough of a stimulus to force the adaptation. Number 1, reduce the load just to right before where the symptoms occur and work on building the threshold up. Number 2, we talked about intensity. Let's talk about reducing and modifying the volume. Many times where people have pain, where they feel fine during the lift and feel fine that day, no symptoms, but then they have a flare up the next day, in my experience, this could be due to having trouble tolerating the volume. Some injuries, some pain, some people are intensity driven, where they can't tolerate a certain intensity. That's usually where you know right then and there, hey, that was too heavy, that caused symptoms. On the other hand, some people are volume sensitive, where they feel fine during the exercise, fine that day, but then the next day they have a flare up. So if that's the case, I want you to try reducing the overall volume. So for example, if you're doing 5x5 squats, try 3x5 squats at the same intensity. So maintain the intensity, but cut the overall volume. So overall volume would be sets times reps. So you're, instead of doing 5x5, you're doing 3x5. Reduce the volume and see if you have the same 24-hour response. And what you can do when you reduce the volume during the session, you can add another session in 3 to 4 days later with a similar volume. So for example, if you're doing 6 sets of 5 squats, 30 reps on a Monday, and you're having an intense flare up the day after, maybe try 3 sets of 5 squats on Monday and Thursday. So you'll maintain the overall volume throughout the week, but you won't have as robust of a flare up the next day. So step 2, reduce or modify the volume. Step 3, sometimes it has nothing to do with how much load you have or how many reps you're doing. It just only hurts regardless of load at a specific part of the range of motion. If that's the case, you just want to limit that range of motion temporarily to get it to calm down. We see this in hip pain during squats. That was covered in episode 1 of Whiteboard Wednesday, where no matter how heavy the weight is, it just hurts right at the bottom. So what do? We limit the bottom position, allow that range of motion to calm down, and then gradually reintroduce it. We also see this with shoulder pain during squats, where people may only have pain at the bottom, so you can try floor pressing, board pressing, or pin pressing variations. And we've seen this with elbow pain during the bench press, where it's either right at lockout or directly at bottom. So if you're not intensity sensitive, you're not volume sensitive, but you're having issues just with a specific part of the range of motion, just temporarily eliminate it and then gradually dose it back in to force the adaptation you're looking for, right? Because you don't want to avoid forever. We want to temporarily avoid and then poke the bear a bit, reintroduce, force the adaptation. So, limit the range of motion. Step 4, slow down the tempo, especially if it's a tendinopathy issue. I talk about this in the barbell rehab workshop. Tendons love tempo. So if you're having pain with a fast rep or a fast tempo, slow it down a bit. This works twofold, because when you slow down the tempo, you're also not going to be able to handle as much load. So this is a way to reduce the intensity, slow down the tempo, but still force a tissue adaptation and get the desired result you're looking for, reduce pain. So slow down the tempo. Step 5 is more of just this big idea. Embrace the process. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people expect that, oh, I have shoulder pain. Well, 3 times a week of 4 weeks physical therapy should make it go away. And we run into this idea that, well, I need to do as many quick fixes as possible because I don't want to deal with it. You need to embrace the process. We're training for life. You're looking to see how you can embrace longevity and train for life. And that doesn't involve quick fixes. So this process takes time, weeks, months. Embrace it. Don't be so consumed by it that you're missing out on social activities or other aspects of your life because I have pain with a lift. Embrace it. It takes time. Train what you can, modify what you can, and continue to get a training effect and continue to enjoy life. That's my 5 tips for training with pain. Change the load, volume, range of motion, tempo, and embrace the process. Thanks for attending and watching this week's Whiteboard Wednesday.